happier they met me or make them feel better. So I was worried about something I shouldn't have even worried about at the time. It was a tough situation, you know, but having that role model thing thrown at me right out of the chute, I learned quickly, you know, that it was a gift. You know, I learned quickly that I was actually the one stealing the energy from the kids, you know, to make me stronger.
Right.
And even though I was trying to help as much as I could, but a lot came with the success that I got in wrestling. It was a lot more than just, you know, going to the ring, tearing the shirt off, dropping the leg, and posing. It turned into a 24-hour-a-day job. If I would walk out of a restaurant or walk out of a bank, they wouldn't go, "Hey, Terry." They'd go, "Hey, Hulk Hogan."
Hey, Hulk. Never turned off.
Yeah, and so it got to the point where instead of me being able to say, "Hello, James, how you doing?" I have to go, "Hey, brother, what's up, dude?" You know, I actually would have to give them what they wanted to say, and it was fun, but it was, after a while, you know, it started to question your sanity.
Right.
You know?
Lines start to blur, you know.
Yeah, just a little bit. Not blur as much as wear you down.
Yeah.
I really never had a problem with the lines blurring. I never have had that problem, thank God, but the wear down factor, you know.
There was a time in your career where you became, and there's a term in wrestling, I don't remember what it is, where for the bad guy.
To be a heel,
To be a heel.
Baby face is a good guy, yeah.
Yeah. So you became a heel or a bad guy for a while, and that was a real, I remember seeing you in an interview several years ago where you talked a little bit about, you know, the fans went from, "Oh my God, he's the most amazing good guy," to saying, "We hate you," you know, and yelling at you. How did that come about?
Well, it came about on a rebound from when I was with the big wrestling organization, the WWF at the time. There was another company that was Time Warner, Ted Turner's company, which was run by Eric Bischoff. They were neck and neck with Vince McMahon and his company. So now there were two big players in this business. And in the early 90s, there was a situation much like they have in baseball now, where the wrestlers were under the microscope of steroids, you know. And at the time, the steroids up until 1988 were still legal. You know, people were not really re-educated. You know, they had the basic research was that if it was prescribed for certain reasons, muscle tears, whatever injuries, steroids were beneficial under certain circumstances. At other times, you know, they weren't beneficial, such that people use them for athletic ability or just to get big as a bodybuilder would. So I was in a situation up until the early 90s where, just like baseball, football, hockey, this stuff was legal, and athletes would use it for muscle tears, injuries, and some people would use it just to keep going or to what they thought would be to enhance their performance. So when this whole steroid issue came down on the wrestling community, of course, they took yours truly and put me at the forefront to say, you know, this is the most popular wrestler, let's attach him to this issue.
Right.
And the issue really wasn't with me, it was with Vince McMahon and what the federal government thought he was involved in, which he wasn't. So there was a dark cloud, you know, over my career. And so I basically at that time was beat up, run down, tired, and it was a perfect time to go shoot a TV series. And during this transition period, when I was shooting a TV series for a couple of years, I was approached by the rival organization, the WCW, Ted Turner's organization, which Eric Bischoff was the powerhouse at. And we decided, you know, to bring Hulk Hogan in. The fans were so loyal, and they loved Hulk Hogan. It just exploded the roof off the building as far as the WCW business goes. And a few months, or it could have been a year after I was there, or down the road, I don't really remember the timing, we entertained the idea of what could we do in the business that hasn't been done? What could we do in wrestling that would shock the world? What could we do that would be this momentum-shifting move that would give us the upper hand? And, you know, Eric Bischoff came up with this idea for Hulk Hogan to be the leader of this new organization called the New World Order, the real cool, edgy bad guys. So I became Hollywood Hulk Hogan with a black beard grown in with a blonde mustache and had a different swagger. And
got rid of the red and yellow.
Yeah, I got rid of the red and yellow and basically told everybody the training, the prayers, and the vitamins, I did it for the money or whatever the train of thought was to make them hate me. But the characters in the NWO were so cool at the time that it kind of backfired on us. The business was awesome. It put us over the top and made us the #1 organization because our business just took off. But the response we got was unexpected. The fans started cheering us even more, you know, as we would, you know, come in as the bad guys and do our thing with the New World Order. The fans actually would cheer us, the bad guys, and boo the good guys. So it kind of like was a gray area in wrestling, where the people like to cheer the edgy guys, the bad guys. But there was that phase. And then when we decided to go back to the red and yellow down the road in the WCW, and I put the good guy colors back on, the fans love to see you repent, and they get behind you, you know, finding the goodness again in the character. And so it's been a great ride, you know. And if I wanted to climb back in the ring now at the old age of 54 years old, I could probably still go in there and generate some serious energy.
Yeah, absolutely. So you went into TV. You had a great TV career. You're working on a new show right now.
Mm-hmm.
Gladiators has been big.
Right.
So I'd be remiss if I didn't talk about you've had some difficult times, personal issues lately, and I know that you and I have talked, and those things, I mean, they've been challenging to carry, and yet there's been some things that have really awakened in you at a new level and
Right.
have helped bring you through that. Talk about that a little bit.
Well, I mean, the last couple of years has been very, very tough. You know, it's you know, winding down from wrestling, trying to find work outside the box, getting back in the entertainment business as far as TV with American Gladiators and this new show we're doing now called Celebrity Championship Wrestling. I've been staying busy, you know, trying to redirect my focus on a business level. But one of the things that made it really tough was on a personal level. My life kind of just got flipped upside down. My son was in a very tragic car wreck, an accident. You know,
Right.
with him and his best friend were in the car, and it was the first time in the state of Florida they've sentenced a minor to the jail time and the situation he was in. So it's been very tough with my son. You know, my marriage has been, you know, broken for quite a few years, and my wife decided to file for divorce 6 or 7 months ago.
I read where you said that was a surprise, or I think maybe you told me personally it was a surprise to you when she filed, and yet
Yeah.
you also admitted that you'd been having some rough go for a while.
Yeah, well, we've been having a tough time for a long time, you know, because people grow apart and people, you know, have different vibrational levels, which I
Right.
totally understand now. And somebody that's aware and present and vibing on a really high level cannot be, you know, in the presence or around or, you know, inundated with someone that's not on that same vibrational level. And that's what I was fighting. I was, with all the injuries I've had with the knee replacements, the hip replacements, and the back and the neck injuries and the injuries to my face and my eyes and my hands being numb, I was, you know, trying to not only get back on my feet, you know, physically, but try, with the marriage being broken, trying to find some bond that was very constant and brought me back to my inner space that would keep me real positive and real consistent. So, you know, I started doing a lot of reading, and actually one of the reasons I was talking about you so much and talking to my son Nick about you so much was there was something that you said in one of the many books you've been part of, is, and the statement went something like this, excuse me if I don't remember it exactly, but you know, you probably attracted things in your life that you're proud of, and you probably have attracted things in your life that you aren't proud of. And the question I'd like to ask you now is, if you're not happy with your certain set of circumstances, when would now be the time to change that? And when you said that word now, it was like somebody sucker punched me. I went, oh my God, what do you mean now?
I'm glad I sucker punched you in the book. And
Yeah, no, you got me. It really was like that same wake-up call I got when I was 14, you know, when I accepted Christ as my Savior. But this was a different type of saving, you know. And when you said, when would now be the right time to change things, I'm like, you mean I don't have to wait 10 more years, you know, and still be unhappy? I could change it now. And then when I started digging, I realized I could change it now by changing my thinking. You know, I could change it now by changing my focus and what I was grateful for. And all those things that you told me, it basically changed my direction. It changed my life. And that was one of the things I think that, you know, that was a combat situation, as I was trying to get my wife to read some of the stuff and try to get my wife to be positive and happy. And, you know, you got a choice of being miserable or happy. Which one do you want to choose?
Right.
You mean you don't want to be happy? It couldn't comprehend that. So, you know, and the air doesn't suck, and the sun is beautiful, and the water's beautiful, and I couldn't go along with that same mindset that everything was horrible, and that, you know, we weren't supposed to be friends with people, and just that whole thing always went against my grain, but I'd been trying to save things for so long and keep things from crashing and burning. And even before I read those words that you said, it had been 2 New Year's Eves in a row. My resolution was all I want to do is be happy. And I kept praying to be happy. I kept dreaming about being happy. And when I read those words, I realized I can change it now, you know. So I really dug into the reading and read a bunch of your stuff, and it basically put me in a very high vibrational mode of being grateful, you know, all the time, because I've got it here. So
and you told me the first time we had dinner, you told me you're typically not a big tattoo guy.
no, I'm
right?
not. I'm not. I've got this grateful, and I've got aware, and I've got my wife's name on this finger. But other than that, that was it. It just really changed everything, and that whole, you know, when I realized that there's a choice of being happy or being miserable, you know, there's a choice of being grateful or you know, not being grateful. I said, who would make the other choice? You know, and then I realized that the person I was with didn't want the things I wanted. And at that point, and then when I didn't try to push, but I tried to make them aware that, you know, you can be happy and life doesn't suck. And, you know,
Right.
the house that you live in is a nice house. And you know, it's just the whole thing, just I started looking back and realizing that part of the reason for the marriage being broken for so long was the two different mindsets of me, my gut feeling that most people are nice and, you know, the world is good and there's a lot of happy stuff. My innermost thoughts of goodness, even though I was unaware, my predominant thoughts of being positive weren't the same predominant thoughts as the person I was.
Right.
You know, it's almost like I was sleeping with the enemy and I didn't realize it. So it's, you know, it changed my life, you know, when you said, when would now be the right time to change
Yeah,
things?
you know, we've talked before, and one of the things I frequently say is that the power to create wealth in your life, in every area, financial, relational, mental, physical, spiritual,
Right.
simply comes from two things. And I've talked to Nick about this as well. You must constantly study, understand, and immerse yourself in things that bring value and power to your life.
Right.
And number two, you must avoid anything that weakens you or devalues your
Right.
life.
Right.
And I think that's a situation that a lot of people find themselves in, not just in relationships, but in work arenas or in friendships or in different environments that are really not bringing value to their life. And so nothing's neutral. You know, something's either moving you forward or holding you back. And I think one of the most powerful decisions I ever made in my life is to constantly surround myself with people, with environments that are going to move me forward and support me in that movement.
Right. Well, you know, part of the problem was, you know, that when I was winding down from wrestling with all the injuries, and all of a sudden I came home and I was stuck in a situation where I was in everybody else's schedule. You know, first off, it took me a while to fit in. But then, you know, if your other half, you know, is, you know, predominantly into more negative things, you know, whether it just be self-inflicted things or, you know, whether it's alcohol or self-medicating or whether it's things you can't control, such as hormonal changes or bipolar situations or whatever it is, if, you know, if they don't want to address them or you can't get them help or you can't get them to the dance to at least be halfway aware, and this whole negative vibration is never dormant and it's always active. I mean, you know, I can't even explain to anyone how hard I've tried to get, you know, my better half or the other half, you know, to read things or sit
Right.
down and look at things. But, you know, when there's a point where some people just aren't ready to be helped or don't want to be helped. And that was the toughest thing for me, was to back away from that.
Yeah, and to realize, you know, one of the things that I share a lot is that you're not responsible for anyone. You're responsible to them, but not for them. Big difference, you know.
Right.
You need to choose. You're able to choose your response toward them, but you're not ever responsible for someone else. You've taken a lot of media hits lately. You know, they love to spin.
Right.
What's getting you through that? Because I mean, I know you as the person, and I know, you know, I talk to Nick on a regular basis, as you know, and I talk to you.
Right.
And I know what's going on, but of course the media wants to take things and spin off and take them out of context.
Right.
What's getting you through that?
Well, it's amazing, you know, how the media, you know, some people in the entertainment business would say it doesn't matter what they say about you as long as they spell your name right. Well, I was of that same mindset for a while until they started talking about my children. It does matter to me. And, you know, at the end of the day, what's getting me through it is being positive and being aware and being very conscious and present almost all the time. And if for whatever reason I'm not present or something compulsively will enter my mind, I've got a real great way to stop things now, because it's not me, it's not who I am anymore. I'm bigger than that, I'm more powerful than that, I'm responsible for my own happiness. I stay very focused on this moment and don't worry about tomorrow, and I give 100% of my attention to this day and this moment. And so when the media comes at me, I understand the mindset of the entertainment business, and instead of a beautiful movie or a nice story about a successful, happy family, they'd rather have a movie about a car crash. I understand what they're doing and, how unconscious and unaware that the public is, so I understand what they're catering to. But the hard stuff is things that have never happened before, are starting to happen with my family, and maybe it's because of Hulk Hogan or the celebrity or how tangible I've been as far as a persona. I'm not like a John Wayne or a Clint Eastwood where I might intimidate some people. Hulk Hogan that you've seen every week on TV is tangible, and people feel like they can come up and talk to me and they know me. So, for things to start happening with me and my family, such as tapes being released,
Right.
where, audio tapes, private personal tapes that were strictly for security, for the jail, in case someone was bringing contraband into the jail or trying to escape. Their security tapes. They're not supposed to be released to the general public, private conversations, and whether it be a O.J. Simpson or a Charles Manson or a Ted Bundy who killed all the co-eds in Florida, or Paris Hilton, there's never been these audio tapes released. But now Hulk Hogan and his son Nick, our tapes are made public to everyone. So, even though my son's a minor and they put him in an adult prison, which is something that's really not been done before under these circumstances, and caught us kind of off guard. We've been dealt a very different hand of cards than anybody else has been dealt. And my son, who's on the same page with me as being grateful and vibing on that high level, is just grateful every day for the wisdom and the information we get. Because if it's a bad day, or the judge, if we're trying to get something done to get Nick moved out of solitary confinement, which kind of like took us off guard.
Right.
That's a cell that's for people in maximum security, the rapists and the murderers that attack guards or fight each other. They'll put them in solitary confinement for punishment. So most people only last 48 or 72 hours in there before they mentally unravel. Nick lasted 29 days. This was for a reckless driving ticket that they put him in there. So the maximum security of the adult prison, the solitary confinement, had never been happened before. So as we were dealing with it, Nick stayed very present. He stayed very focused and very aware. And if
he's gotten stronger.
Yes, he has.
As a result of that.
Yeah,
when I talk to him, he's stronger
right.
than he was before it occurred.
Right. Yes, he is. And he's appreciative, and he's definitely present and definitely conscious.
Yeah.
So if we were dealt a bad hand on a Monday and the judge turned down a motion or wouldn't read a legal theory that we'd worked on for 2 weeks, or I'd spent a couple $100,000 on to show them that they misinterpreted the law, and the judge would just not even look at it. So I already made my decision. Nick would be grateful that happened, and he was grateful that he would know the speed bump that was in front of him. And he's just taken this on as such a big man at 17 years old, and I get so much respect for him, to be my son and to step into this place and have the judge say in the courtroom that if it wasn't for who you were, I would be leaning more towards the rehabilitation, the juvenile side, because you are a juvenile, you're still a child. But since you are who you are, we have to lean towards the punishment side. I went, wow, that doesn't sound like we're being treated like everybody else.
Right.
And to be handed that deck of cards and to be sentenced eight months minimum security, which, everybody with reckless driving in the state of Florida and serious